Okay, so now we will start our new chapter, chapter 2, for the river, about river and coast management, and it is one of the chapter that we are also involved in the FPQ, the field work based questions in the year that we are going for the DSE. Okay, so now we will talk about chapter 2.1 first, about the very basic information or the knowledge about the water cycle and the drainage basin. So first part about the water cycle and then the drainage basin. So first of all, as this chapter is actually about the water, I think some of you have watched the movie Frozen, right? So in Frozen, I'm not sure whether you remember there a scene that Olive and Elsa is finding the evidence or finding the past of Elsa's parent by the memory of the water. So I'm not sure whether you have watched this movie, but this is actually related to the topic that we are going to talk in this chapter. So I don't know whether you have watched it, but actually Olive, he mentioned that the water has the memory and it passes, I forgot, like 4 or 7 person in the world before we get access of the water. 即係水係會通過大概俾4個動物或者人用過啦，跟住我哋即係先會用咁樣樣嘅。For more information about the knowledge, you could visit the YouTube video here. Okay, this is just for more information, but will not be asked in DSE. 咁因為呢個好有趣呢，就係因為睇咗呢個電影之後啦，就想即係 relate 翻去我哋嘅課本入邊呢，就係因為一個 water cycle， 我哋而家講緊呢，其實都好相關去翻水係點解會 pass 咗4個人先至到我哋去使用呢？就因為其實地球上面嘅水係永遠都係咁多嘅，只不過佢可能喺唔同嘅形態啦。或者佢係喺唔同嘅地方去出現嘅。So this is related to water cycle. So I want you to do the Let's Explore on page 3 as well. You could get a very brief revision or information about what you have learned in grade 8 about the water cycle. So on page 4 tells you about different homes of the water that living in our earth. 咁地球喺水喺地球上呢，其實就有啲唔同嘅儲水嘅地方，你當佢係佢嘅屋企啦。So first of all is in the ocean or in the sea. So the most obvious one. And actually land store many water as well. It could be stored on the surface, for instance, the lake, the ponds, or even the vegetations. And other in solid or semi-solid states are included snow and ice that you have also learned in grade 8. And under the surface, we call it as the subsurface store. For instance, inside, under our land, under the lithosphere, there are soil or the rocks. They also store some of the water. And of course, our atmosphere, okay? For instance, water vapor or the water droplets stored in the clouds are also one of the home or what we call the storage of the water. So please highlight the definition on page 4. So water cycle is actually talking about the water moving from one store to another. This is what we call the transfer of the water. So like they are traveling or moving to different places. the transfer of the water, the movement. So this continuous circulations of the water between different homes or different stores are known as the water cycle. So this is the definition of the water cycle. So it talks like so easy of the movement of the water, right? So does the water take the plane, take the ship, or take the bus to go to other places, to go to other store? Or there are other methods in natural. So let's take a look on page 4. There is a very clear diagram with a lot of words on that. So let's go through it one by one. So first of all, here you could see at least 2 storage of the water. Okay, first of all is the snow and the ice. Okay, second, the sea and the ocean. And also the vegetations and lake or the river. So first of all, how can the water on the land or on the sea or on the oceans go to the atmosphere here? So they can go to the atmosphere by the process that we call evaporation, transpiration, or these two together we call it as the evapotranspiration. Evapotranspiration here means the process together of the evaporation and transpiration. For your information or just a small reminder for you, transformation means the evaporation from the vegetation. So after the evapotranspiration, they will condense in the atmosphere through a process of condensation, and clouds will be formed as the other storage of the water. After it becomes too heavy, precipitation happens. It could drop back to the land or the ocean and the sea in different forms. For example, in rain, in snow, in ice, or in hail. So while the precipitation happens, the rainwater or the melted snow, they could move all over the land back to the lake, the river, or the sea and the ocean. Some of them will move from the soil down to the subsurface. Okay, this is the second layer, lighter color. And furthermore, the water could also further go down through the soil into the rock. Okay, more hard layer. And the water passing through the soil or passing through the rock, they will eventually move back to the ocean. So all this process tells us that the detail of the movement of the water throughout the water cycle and changing their state, different like ice, water, hail, or snow. So we could see they can actually work from the liquid to the water vapor, or they could from the liquid or the vapor back to the liquid or soil. Okay, so on page 5 you can see that there are several ways for the water to go back to the ground. First one is the precipitation. When it go over, when the rain fall down on the ground, they might run back to the river through overland flow. This is what we call the surface runoff on the surface. Okay, and then there is a process called the interception. This means the water will run and run through some vegetations and being trapped by the leaves. So this is what we call the interception. So inside the vegetation or inside the tree, there are two ways that the water could run back to the land. First is the stem flow. OK， 顧名思義，即係喺個樹幹度順住啲樹幹呢啲水就會流返落去個大地啦。The second one is called a drip flow, from dropping from the tip of the leaf. OK, drip flow. So through the stem flow, drip flow of the interception and also precipitation, you can see the water are once again returned back to the ocean, the river, the lake, or the sea. So the water running on surface, these are what we call the surface runoff, including the overland flow and the channel flow. Okay, sorry for the formatting. So this is infiltration. So further away, just like what I mentioned, the water will go further into the soil. So here, the water going from surface to the soil, the process is called the infiltration. So the soil will got the water and accumulate some moisture in the soil layer. This is the unsaturated soil or the small size of the rocks， 即係話未曾飽和嘅嗰個泥土啦，或者啲石啦，即係佢仲有空間咧，俾啲水分去進入嘅。咁同時間咧，呢度亦都係咧泥土儲存水分嘅地方。So only infiltration is the one way, right? But actually it is a two-way action. At the same time, apart from infiltration, the plants, they will take up the water and absorb some of the soil moisture. So here is a two-way arrow. So when the soil moisture in the soil layer, or what we call the water table, they flow back to the river. This process we call it as the through flow. And last but not least, when the water or the moisture further go down to the groundwater level, groundwater store, this is what we call the percolation. And because it's in the groundwater store, so this is what we call the groundwater flow, when the water flow back to the river. So the water could go back to the water body throughout overland flow, through flow, and also the groundwater flow. And because through flow and the groundwater flow, they are under the surface, we call it as the subsurface runoff. So if you want to memorize the water cycle in a more clear way, you could visit these two videos on YouTube to see about the water cycle. Okay, there are some very brainwash music for you to memorize the process. Okay. So if you have interest on this video, you could go and watch it. Okay, let's continue. So please highlight infiltration, overland flow, through flow, and groundwater flow on page 5. So at the bottom of page 5, there are more clear flowchart showing you all the relationship of the diagram. On the top of page 5. So here, let me go through it with you as well. So when the rainwater, they reach the ground, they have 3 ways to get back to the river. First is the overland flow. It is a kind of the surface runoff. And through flow, the groundwater or base flow. So these two are the subsurface runoff. So once the water reach the ground, they might store on the surface. For instance, inside the small ponds, the vegetations, like just what I mentioned about the stem or the drip, the leaves. So these are what we call as the surface store of the water. So when they are stored on the earth surface, they could run by the overland flow back to the water, back to the river. When they further seep into the soil through the infiltration, the water will be stored in the unsaturated rocks or the soil. This is what we call the soil moisture store. So in this layer, when the water they are returning back to the river, it is what we call the through flow. When the water is further moved down to the rock layer, this is what we call percolation. Because the rock here, they are saturated rock, most of them are saturated. They may just run through the cracks or the joints of the rock. And here is where we store the groundwater too. 地下水. So this is what we call the groundwater store. So the groundwater will flow downslope in the rock as the groundwater flow back to the river. And for those water flowing in the river, inside the river, is what we call a channel flow. It is also a kind of the surface runoff. Okay, so this is how the water run in the water cycle and how they will reach a river by different types of flows. On page 6, we are going to learn about some major factors that will affecting infiltration, overland flow, through flow, and groundwater flow. So please put stars on the table of page 6. 即係話呢一版呢就有列咗個表啦，就同你講究竟有咩嘅因素呢係會影響到啦 infiltration 啦、overland flow 啦、through flow 同埋 groundwater flow 嘅量嘅。Okay, so let's see about the infiltration first. First of all, if the slope gradient increase, it means it's steep. 即係個斜坡越斜嘅話呢 infiltration will be less because the water can directly slip back to the river， 即係好似瀡滑梯咁啦，好快就可以瀡晒入去條河啦，根本就冇時間俾佢呢去 infiltration 嘅，即係冇時間俾佢滲落下面嘅。OK， and when the soil moisture is increasing, the infiltration will also decrease. It is because when the soil moisture increase, it will become more saturated. That means less water could infiltrate into the water table layer. And the land surface permeability. Permeability here means 透水性，即係話佢滲唔滲到水嘅意思啦。So if it is less permeable, the infiltration will be less too because it can't go into the subsurface area. For the soil permeability, if the soil permeability decrease, the infiltration will also decrease as well because it don't allow the water to get in. Okay, finally, if the vegetation cover decrease, the infiltration will also decrease as well because the trees or the stem and the leaves actually they drip the water back to the surface slowly, so it allows more time for the water to infiltrate. If there are less vegetation cover, there are very smooth surface on the land, the water will flow very quickly back to the river. So if the vegetation cover decrease, the infiltration rate also will decrease. Next, for the overland flow，overland flow 即係呢個啦，喺面上面流嘅其中一個 flow 啦。So again, if the slope gradient increase, the overland flow actually they will increase because flow faster. The intensity of the rain, it means 落雨嘅強度啦。If there are more rain, of course there are more overland flow. However, if the infiltration rate increase, that means it could sip more water down to the soil level. The overland flow here will decrease. Okay, actually 呢個會 sorry 呢度圈錯咗嘅，應該係 decrease 嘅，幫我改翻。咁個 infiltration rate 呢，因為如果佢啲水呢，你見到第呢一個嘅綠板呢都寫咗啦 ，infiltration rate 佢一定係要細呢嗰個 overland flow 先多嘅，但係如果佢 increase 嘅話呢，佢就會 decrease 啦呢度。咁呢度就改一改翻佢先。Okay, then we keep on move to the through flow. For the through flow, if the gradient increase, the slope more steep, the through flow will increase. So you can circle it on your book, page 6. Okay? It is because when the slope with a steeper gradient, they will have more through flow, as a greater part of the gravity is used to accelerate the water down the slope. Okay, so it will 即係佢嘅意思係嗰個地心吸力可能同時間都會吸多咗啲水落去嗰個嘅soil level 嗰度啦 ，soil level 啦。The soil porosity means 啲罅隙啊，啲罅隙度啦。如果佢多啲嘅話呢，咁 of course 個 through flow 就會多啲啦。Soil moisture storage. If it is high, the through flow will increase as well because it could allow more moisture to get in. Last but not least, we go to the groundwater flow. First of all, if the rock porosity increase, the groundwater flow will of course increase because it provides more cracks and more space, more joints for the water to get in. Okay, similar theory for the groundwater storage. If it increase, the groundwater flow will also increase because it allows more water to get in this layer, the rock layer. So on page 6, you can check your answer for this one. Okay, there are some circle you need to circle, and I will upload the answer for this one later for the exercise, the book exercise on the E-class and Google Classroom later. So you could check it later. Okay, give you 5 more seconds to circle it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this is the homework for you, and I will film another video about the homework of the checkpoint page 6 to 7. Okay, so if there's no questions, this is the first part of this chapter.